It's my pleasure to welcome again Ann Shelley, the National Director, Facilitator, and Trainer of the Transparenting Program, the largest network of live co-parenting classes in America. Thanks for being here, Ann.
Welcome.
And I had something I wanted to share with you, or ask you to share with people, and that is how to identify people. I got to thinking who are good co-parents, maybe those around us we could learn from, and it occurs to me a lot of that comes from just hearing what they say, the language that they use. I wonder what you think of this. Things like, I wonder what you think about this, or I could really use your input about this, and thank you, and please, things like that. What do you think?
I think a good parent is actually someone who engages the other parent in a conversation rather than demanding. They start a lot of their conversations with, I would like to see this happen, versus you need to make this happen. And when you talk to those folks, you can hear that in the way they talk about one another. There's much more compatibility, there's much more cooperation, and just basically treating each other with a little bit of decency is really where we're starting from.
Yeah, basic kind of things that we learned as kids that we forget in the competitive business, unfortunately, the way society looks at this. Let me try a couple other things that we have on a little memo that people can click on when they watch this video. What about these, Ann? If it's important to you, it's important to me. If that's on your mind, I want to help make that work out, or let me see if I can help make that work out.
Absolutely, and I think the way parents get there is by retaining that focus on the child. That's where their mutual concern really is, and that's what gets lost in the competitive arena that they are asked to participate in when they go through the legal side of the divorce. They forget that at the ultimate end of everything, they're really in the same place, and they're really focused on the same person or children.
Absolutely. I mean, the fundamental mistake we make is to think that because we've separated, now all of a sudden our best interests are in conflict, when in fact our best interests are to give these kids the best childhood possible, and that becomes all the more important because
Absolutely.
the kids...
One of the things we talk about in the class that's certainly validated on the website is to retain the positive memories that you have about the relationship that existed before the divorce. And what I found is that parents oftentimes feel that they have to let go of the entire past in order to make it easier for themselves to move forward. And while that does help emotionally, what the consequence of it is they lose the perspective of appreciating the good that they did share, even if it was just for a short period of time. And the majority of that, really truly, are those children that they share together, and that's not going anywhere.
Right, they're literally throwing the baby out with the bathwater,
Absolutely.
throwing these kids out. How about I'm sorry? I mean, you don't have to apologize for everything, but if something didn't work out as well as you wanted, what's wrong with, I'm sorry. I could have done that better, or I'll get to that. I'll do that better next time.
I think we, as a general society, tend to be not very good at saying sorry to one another. Mm-hmm. And there's some sense by the parents that to say sorry means to, again, hand over some power and control, when really it just brings them back to the same page, which is, let's start over and let's do this better next time. I recognize where I made maybe an error in judgment and maybe spoke out of line, where I really wish I wouldn't have used those words, and I'd like to ask that we get a retake.
Right, exactly. It works in every other relationship. We need it here.
Absolutely.
And one last one. How about the one where maybe a suggestion has been made that I'm not completely comfortable with right now? We could say, thanks for that. Could I get back to you about that? Can I get back to you about that? Because maybe I'm not really prepared to make a constructive contribution to that conversation.
Oh, absolutely. I think part of the problem is a lot of parents are trying to communicate very piecemeal, very quick conversations where they take care of a lot of issues in a very short span of time. And that's not good decision making. What we want to see is we want parents to take one thing at a time, which might mean 3 or 4 conversations over the course of a few days, and giving them that time in between to be thoughtful and to get perspective of their children and what's going to be in the family's best interest, and be okay with that process, and don't feel like you have to rush through and get through 10 issues in a 5-minute call just because you don't want to talk again. You get much better results, and you're much happier for yourself individually, and your children are much happier in the result.
Thanks for being here. The last suggestion I make to parents is, if you know people who have good divorces, spend some time with them, and I think you're going to notice they use language like this. And when you find yourself starting to use that, you're probably on a much better track for yourself and your kids.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for
Oh,
being
you're
here.
welcome.